begin. We're going to begin our practice today by inviting the chime to sing. And one of the things that we endeavor to do in the Spokane Sangha is really explore the Noble Eightfold Path, particularly this year, where we're really spending a lot of time investigating each of the elements, each of the aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path. And one of them that we talk about is wise livelihood. And one of the things about wise livelihood is there's this tendency to think of livelihood as only a job. How do we create security for ourselves and so forth? And making sure that the way we live our lives is aligned with skillfulness and ethical conduct and so forth. And one of the things that I really like to convey when I'm thinking about wise livelihood is how to minimize violence in my life. In my mind, in my speech, in my actions, in my heart. And so it's even as mundane as how I interact with a chime. So here's my little mallet, and I don't hit the chime. I don't strike the chime. I invite it to sing. Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators in the Spokane Sangha. I'm really happy to be here today. It's a beautiful day in Spokane. This afternoon, I'm going to spend time on Tawanda. Tawanda is my weed whacker, and she is hardcore weed whacker, and I love her. And so it's nice to have a little time to quiet down and practice. Today we're going to set the intention for our practice with this sentiment of metta. This one reads, "May you make someone's day by showing up." May you make someone's day by showing up. Check. You've all done it. Can check that off the list. I was a good one today. As my mother liked to say, good doobie. You're a good doobie today. And so, yeah, you did it. Oh, that's our intention. Showing up. How are you showing up? That's a good inquiry question. It's one thing to show up and be a warm body and a warm presence. And how is that presence? Are you a warm, steaming pile of doo-doo presence? Or are you a warm, radiant light presence? Are you somewhere in between? It's not about trying to be one or the other. It's simply about recognizing and cultivating awareness of how am I showing up today? So let's bring that and fold that into our practice. Friends, for the month of June in the Spokane Sangha, we are exploring the second aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. We have spent the entire year going back to the foundation of the Buddhist practice, particularly outlined in the Recovery Dharma book, the Noble Eightfold Path and the Noble Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. And the fourth noble truth, there's a way to really understand our misery and our discomfort and our suffering. And by deepening that understanding, we end it, we transform it. And that way is the Noble Eightfold Path. And the thing that's really important to identify in the Noble Eightfold Path is it isn't linear. Many of us come into recovery having had a lot of experience in traditional programs where there are steps, there's a formula, there's a path. And even though they say it's not linear, sometimes when I think of steps, I think of steps as being quite linear. The Noble Eightfold Path is more like folding in a cake, where you're mixing all kinds of ingredients and you're gently turning it in on itself to create something new. So by having all of these separate individual ingredients all converging together, folding in on one another, you create a whole new something else. And that something else is your life, my life. And so these concepts, these ideas that get folded in that make up the Noble Eightfold Path are enormous. Wise understanding, holy cow. as if we can arrive to full understanding. The Buddha says we can. The Buddha demonstrated that it's possible. I think for me, as I reimagine that possibility, for me, the number one motivator is to be curious. That's how I constantly gain access to my understanding, is to stay curious, stay open. The second aspect, which we're exploring for the month of June, is wise intention in the traditional language. And wise intention, as I have reimagined it for my own life and my own practice, is to be spacious. So not only am I being curious in my understanding, when I create intentions, I want to cultivate a lot of space around that intention. And here's why. My intentions, I want them to be good, but that doesn't guarantee that they will be. That doesn't guarantee that I have enough understanding supporting my intention that the outcome will always be good. As a matter of fact, I know from experience that even with my good intentions, negative things happen. I never mean it to be so, and yet it still happens. So what do I do with that? Do I shrug my shoulders and just say, well, I had good intentions, so I'll just swipe my hands of that and not worry about the consequences? Or can I create space around my actions, around the effect and impact of those actions, so that all of it becomes the raw material for my understanding, my awakening, my healing? And I'd like to share with you an example, a story, really. And it's an ancient story. And it illustrates, I think, so beautifully the idea of having a faulty good intention and to create space so that we can look at our intentions from as many perspectives as possible with the understanding that we have. So long, long ago, there was a great teacher who had a handful of students, and she was teaching about cultivating wise intentions, good intentions. And one of the students raised his hand and said, teacher, I was always taught that having good intentions and doing our best is good enough. And all the other students, all the peers nodded. Yeah, that's what I was taught. Having good intentions. What else is there? That's the place to start, right? And the teacher paused. And in her pause, she created a lot of stillness and a lot of space so that her students' minds would soften and open. And she said, let me tell you a story about a monkey and a fish. Once along a river, a monkey sat in a tree staring at the fish down below. And it jumped from the tree branch onto the bank and reached down into the river so that it could save the fish from its watery grave. The monkey had such good intentions, did it not? So let's bring this story and let's be fearless about looking at our own actions. This is not to look fearlessly, is not to look with condemnation or confession or shame, but the purity of honesty, the resilience that comes with trust and truth. So, on the journey of recovery, and certainly on the journey of substance use disorder, there's a very common behavior associated with the misuse and abuse of substances, and that is isolation. The actions that people engage, the actions that I have engaged in my life, where I'm removing myself from connections with other people because I'm self-protecting. I don't want people too close. I don't want them to see my misconduct. I don't want to give up my misconduct yet. So I don't want them to see, I don't want them to worry, I don't want them to feel hurt. So I'm just going to cut off connections, limit connections, avoid connections. This is the disorder, this is how the disordered part manifests, because a disorder is by definition anything that we do in terms of action that negatively impacts our ability to create and maintain relationships, our ability to work, live independently, and so on. And we all have times in life, I think, where we engage in this sort of disordered patterning. Sometimes it's related to substance misuse, sometimes grief can bring forward this disordered kind of pattern of isolation. People don't understand, so I'm just going to not engage with them. And the intention of it is good, is it not? You know, I don't want my loved ones to worry about me. I don't want them to see me in my truest form. I don't want their concern. So I'm doing them a favor by not having them see me, by not communicating, by not connecting. That's a good thing, right? And the answer, if we're being really honest, is yes. That's true. It could be a good thing, and it's not the whole truth. And that's where we really get to the wisdom of cultivating a wise intention, is to create space for what else is true. It doesn't have to be that my intention is bad. It can be a good intention. Absolutely, that monkey saving the fish is a good thing. And what else was going on? What else is true? Because the combination of all the things, all the parts that are true within that intention and within that action make the truth. And the truth is what's wise. So, in my behavior of wanting to spare my loved ones, or I've been in the other situation where I have been spared, my loved ones have been trying to spare me. And it is true, I feel spared by the disconnection, but I also feel left out, dismissed, ignored. I feel like, hey, you're not giving me a chance to actually show my strength and my compassion and care. Let me in. I may be able to provide avenues of nurturance and encouragement. Let me in. So, wise intentions are so much more than having just good intentions. It's the ability to explore, broaden the perspective, look from multiple angles, be open to having a distortion, be spacious around the need to self protect and the motivation to protect others, and to be spacious to being humbled, to needing help, to trusting kindness. All of this folded. Allow your wisdom to speak to you. Listen.